Hey, how's it going, everybody? This is a very spur of the moment live stream that I am just shooting on my game room computer because I wanted to touch base with everybody since we couldn't do a show on Monday. And I always feel bad when we go a full week without doing anything. So first off, hello. The sound quality is going to be garbage because I'm just using the webcam microphone. So please forgive the low quality. But I wanted to knock this out because life has been a little bit chaos lately. So anywho, the short version is I wanted to touch base on a couple of different things. First off, we talked about it super briefly on the show 2 Mondays ago, but there have been some big doings in my world. And for those of you that don't keep up with me personally on social media, you might not know anything about it. So I wanted to send this out for everybody here that watches on YouTube. And I got a new job. I have accepted a position with Virgin Voyages, the new cruise line that is just coming into being. I just realized I wasn't looking at the camera. Sorry. Hi, how's it going? Eye contact. I have accepted a job with Virgin Voyages as part of their on-ship entertainment starting in January of 2020. And that means that I am going to be moving on to a ship, which is a very weird thing that I never thought I would say out loud, but it's the truth, at least so far. So this means a couple of different things. Number one, it means that for the next 6 months, my availability is going to get even sketchier than it already has been, primarily because I have 6 months to sort of wrap up my life and liquidate belongings and take care of life stuff in the real world. And then when, January comes around, I'm going to be giving up my apartment that I've spent all this time. I'm going to be selling most of my board games. And I'm just going to try and minimalize as much as possible because I'm going to be living in 15 square meters of a cruise ship. Now, having said that, there's a lot to be said for what I'm going to be doing. I was hired as a gamer, so I'm going to be bringing my gaming expertise to the Scarlet Lady is the name of the ship, by the way. So I'm really excited for the opportunity that this presents, but it does mean that a lot of changes are going to be coming over the next 6 months. So first order business is hang in there. Do me a favor. YouTubers say this all the time, and generally speaking, it feels like a shill, but if you value this content and you want to make sure you never miss a show, I'm going to strongly, strongly suggest that you subscribe to the channel below and hit the little bell and make sure that you get all notifications. So that way, every time I do a video or every time any of the hosts do a video, you'll get a notification. A little red number will pop up if you have an iPhone or whatever, and you'll get a notification saying that there is something to watch, even if you don't watch live. Actually, especially if you don't watch live, because I know we have somewhat limited communication, and I'm usually not able, if I can't do a show, it's usually because I'm not physically somewhere where I can put up a video. And because we don't have enough subscribers on the channel, I can't do live streams from my phone anymore like I used to. They've changed the requirements for that. So, but I don't want to leave people high and dry either. So I will always try to do a video like this when I can, but no promises. So if you subscribe and you hit the notification bell, I think as you're looking at it, it's going to be somewhere in that general vicinity, that general vicinity. I think it's this way. Then you'll get notified about stuff. We had a meeting across all of the hosts, and the majority of the hosts have agreed that they want to continue keeping the Cubist going regardless of my status. Now, I'm still going to attempt to host the Cubist when possible, but my schedule is going to get really spotty, and I don't actually know exactly what my schedule will be once I get on the ship. So it might be, I might just record hot takes about stuff and add them to the channels as sort of bonus content, and the other co-hosts, Kimberly and Patrick and Eric specifically, and Chad, welcome to the crew, are going to keep the show going as long as they are able to. So having said that, even if I can't do live streams like I have been used to doing up till this point. I still intend to continue putting out, at the very least, mini reviews of games when I have a chance. And that might be, the upload schedule might be super weird and sketchy, and it could be all over the place. I don't know. But I really enjoy making these videos. I originally thought 3.5 years ago when I resurrected the Cubist from its audio format, my original thought was that I wanted to grow the Cubist into something substantial and serious with a huge viewership, and that was my goal. And over the last 3 years, I've discovered that not only A, am I not good at that, but B, that's the wrong reason to do anything. And so now I just want to use this as a place to sort of give my thoughts on things gaming related. If you want to know about my personal life after this, I am also going to be uploading to my private, or my personal YouTube channel. It's not private, Bill Corey Jr. So if you go and find that YouTube channel and subscribe and hit bells there, I am going to be doing a vlog as often as possible, hopefully once a day. I'm going to try and hold to once a day for the entirety of the time that I'm aboard ship. So that way I can give thoughts on what it's like living on a cruise ship, because I feel like this is the sort of thing that maybe you don't get to hear. This is one of those jobs where it seems super glamorous. And honestly, it's, I mean, this is going to sound egotistical, but this is pretty much my dream job. So I'm really excited for this opportunity. But I feel like this is the sort of thing where you're not going to hear this talked about a whole lot, because it's a pretty narrow thing, and I think it might be interesting for some folks. So, and I promise this isn't just all going to be shills. I'm just throwing info out there so that way people know. We're going to try and keep to our regular Monday night schedule as much as we can for the next 6 months. But like I said, my availability is going to become kind of sketchy as time goes on and it gets closer and closer. At some point, I'm going to have to dismantle my little studio. At which point we're going to go back to laptop land like we used to have back in the day, rinse and repeat. So we'll see. We'll see how all that plays out. But I just kind of wanted to give some more details on what's going on, because we hinted around it and we said things really abbreviated in that last show. And I realized after we got off the air that there are going to be a lot of people that watch the show that don't do any social media interaction with me. And I wanted to make sure that I dispersed information that way. Now, having said that, let's give you some real content. Now that you've sat through all of my self-serving nonsense, let's give you some real content so you can at least get one game review. I want to talk about Gen 7 from Plaid Hat Games. Gen 7, which you will see right there. Oh, there you go. Look at that. Gen 7 is a legacy-style campaign game from Plaid Hat. It is legacy in that decisions that you make affect future plays of the game. So it's really more of a campaign game, but it's not legacy. I don't think it's a true legacy game. But the reason I say that is because the game is completely resettable by design. There is no part of this game that you can't reset for another campaign. They give you plenty of campaign tracking sheets so that way you can run multiple campaigns. They specifically tell you at the end of the campaign, because I have just finished the campaign today, which is why I'm doing this. They tell you specifically that they expect you to play it multiple times because there are different storylines you can pass through. And by the way, this review is going to contain 0 spoilers whatsoever. So there are multiple storylines. There is content. The one thing I can say is that there are envelopes we did not open in our campaign. I would say maybe half of the sealed content in the box never got opened. So there is a lot of content that we never saw. It is a fully cooperative game. I think I've talked about Gen 7 briefly on the show, but I gave kind of a first impression because I was only 1 or 2 games in, and that was a long time ago because it took us forever to get through this campaign. It's only a 7-game campaign, but the friends that I was playing it with, our schedules, dice placement, worker placement game, which has the players being the command crew of a world ship that has left Earth and is on its way to a distant, distant star. And you are the 7th generation, Gen 7, of humans aboard this ship. You were born on the ship. You will die on this ship. The ship is not going to get where it's going for another multiple generations down the road. So this is a window into the midpoint, a midpoint of a hundreds of years journey across space to set up humanity on a new world. That's the theme. The gameplay is that it's a fairly light-ish dice placement, worker placement game that involves you collecting resources and spending those resources in order to accomplish tasks. And I don't want, like I said, I'm not going to do any spoilers here. I cannot remember the last time that I was this conflicted on my opinion of a game. And here's why. I think that at its core, it's a very mechanically sound and interesting dice placement, worker placement game. I like a lot of what the very basic mechanics of the game do. Having said that, every single game, the mechanics change. And that's fine. That's pretty normal for a campaign / legacy game. But there is very little consistency in those changes of mechanics. And I think that there are editorial mistakes that were made that made a lot of things unclear in spots, like when certain rules were and were not in use. There were typos that I found that would send you to the wrong page, or recursive would send you to the page you were already on. So we had to make judgment calls on which page they were really talking about. Most of the time they were pretty intuitive on what to figure out, but just that's the sort of thing that when you have, and I've actually, I'm in the middle of a Betrayal Legacy campaign as well right now. And across both of them, there's one thing that I think is really, really key, which is when you're playing a campaign game, the reason you're playing that game is to get some sort of a narrative over the span of multiple games. And you don't want the rules of the game to get in the way of establishing that narrative. And in both Betrayal Legacy and Gen 7, it felt like the rules of how to actually play the game were not as clear as I would like them to be. And this is also coming from a guy that is currently playing a Gloomhaven campaign and has played Pandemic Legacy Season 1. And I really dig campaign games because they harken back to my roots as a role player originally. So this is sort of my jam. This is what I want from my narrative style games. And this game feels like the rules are so fiddly in spots, and it's so... And here's the other issue. If you've ever played any legacy game before, Charterstone, Pandemic Legacy, any of those games, you know that when rules are added, generally speaking, those rules are put onto a sticker, and then that sticker can be added to the rule book. But because they wanted Gen 7 to be 100% resettable, you can't do stickers in the rule book. And so rules end up on these cards, and there are a lot of cards by the end of the campaign, which means there are a lot of rules. And this game's already a table hog without having to put out 2 digits worth of rules cards. And now some of them you won't need to look at every time, but some of them you will have just been introduced to at the end of the previous scenario. And that got, like, the rules load of this game got really heavy for a game that is essentially still a fairly light to medium weight cooperative game. It just had a lot, and I mean a lot, of rules that felt a little fiddly. Now, this sounds like I'm panning the game, but I promise I'm not. Here's why I say that. The story was excellent. Like, I loved the story, and not everybody at the table did. There were one of our players didn't really care a whole lot about the story, cared a lot about the mechanics of gameplay, and that's just sort of her focus. I really was enjoying the narrative arc that the game took me on. I was just annoyed that there was a lack of cohesion in the rules, and the rules seemed to get in the way of the storytelling. I'll also say that the This is a Crossroads game, by the way. So this is the spiritual successor to Dead of Winter. Yeah, it's not really a successor. It's the second game in the Crossroads series, Dead of Winter being the first one. And the Crossroads cards in this game are very difficult to trigger and therefore use. And since that's one of the gimmicks of the game, the good news is the Crossroads deck is not essential to the main storyline of the game, but there are side stories that you want to explore, and the Crossroads deck is what helps you explore those side stories for the most part. And that was a little bit frustrating as well. But mechanically, the basic game is sound. The story is really good. This is why I'm so torn. There are things about this game that frustrated all of us, I think me more than the other players, frustrated us so much that we were complaining while we were playing the game, but we also really wanted to finish the campaign and enjoyed the end. And I will say that the 7th game in the campaign was easily our favorite. Like we really, and we were only ever able to play one game per session. Pardon me. That's why I have multiple people on the show, so I have time to sip water. We never played more than one session in a night. So it wasn't like tonight we happened to be really on the money and we had played 2 games. We did play the 6th session a couple weeks ago, so it was fresher, but it wasn't so fresh that we were like, oh yeah, I remember how this works. We still had to look a lot of stuff up. And we did that all the time. But we wanted to because there was a story and we wanted to see the story through. Narratively, this game is really good. Mechanically, this game has flaws. Having said that, if I'm going to force myself to the standard that I hold everybody else on my show to, and I want to give this a review, I think I have to give it a play it after having played the entire campaign. And here's why. I don't think it's a bad investment, but I think it's $100. And $100 for a game that has flaws is a lot. Even though, and now having said that, I want to play it again. I want to play another campaign and I want to explore more of that content because there's still all this stuff that I haven't seen. I really want to play it again. But I don't know if your group has a hard time keeping track of rules, this is not going to be a good fit. And I don't typically, I used to think that I was really good at keeping track of rules. I'm not so sure as I get older if that's still the case. I mean, I could, I don't know. It's hard to describe. This game really taxed my ability to remember rules. More so than a lot of much heavier games that I have played that I really enjoy. And I think that's a shame because I think that those rules issues really got in the way of a really excellent narrative story. I would like to see a sticker pack that could be it's way too late for this. None of this is going to happen. I would like to see, and I have no idea. There's an expansion too. Dear God, I cannot imagine why you would need an expansion for this game. We'll come back to that in a second. I would like to see them do something to fix the issues that I found. I will say also the storage of the game is kind of a nightmare. It doesn't store particularly friendly. There's really no good way to store all those cards, and they gave you dividers, which is just weird. I have a bunch of empty deck boxes that I thought I was hoping I was going to be able to put all the cards into, but the number of cards is too big for certain deck boxes and was a waste of space for other ones. There's just a lot. So it has some barriers to entry that I think the gameplay is a little bit too simplistic to warrant. But having said that, the narrative is really good. So there is going to be a Venn diagram of gamers that don't mind constantly learning new rules and really want a narrative experience and don't mind shelling out money for a game and want to play it over and over again. This is your jam. I just think that's a very narrow Venn diagram. And I mean, that's me. That it feels like it will be a more narrow Venn diagram than I wish it was. But having said that, I don't regret playing it. I'm glad I did. I'm seriously considering playing it again because it's infinitely resettable. There's no reason that you could not share a copy. I hate saying that because I like people to pay for IP, but I don't know. It's a hefty price tag. And maybe it's been reduced. I'm just going off of MSRP. I don't know how much it actually is now. I don't have the page up in front of me because I wasn't thinking about talking about it in this regard. But anyway, so there is your not so quick review of Gen 7, a Crossroads game from Plaid Hat Games. It is a play it, I think. If you have a group that you know fits that Venn diagram I was talking about a couple minutes ago, maybe turn it into a buy it and split the cost, like share it 4 ways. By the way, it plays 3 or 4 players. We played it at 3. I think I would have preferred to play it at 4, even though it might have made the game take a little longer. 3 players felt like in spots we were shoehorning, like it was the way that it scales the game for a 3-player game versus a 4-player game felt a little bit fiddly. And it's not a big deal. It's certainly not a game breaker. And that's a nitpick for sure. But I think I would have rather played it at 4. And I think that if you have a 4-player group that you feel like would enjoy the things that I talked about, this would be a solid purchase for that 4-player group. But that is specific enough that I can't just say buy it. So it is a play it, in my ever so humble opinion. Having said that, I hope to get one more campaign of it in before I go live on a cruise ship. That is the weirdest thing I've ever said out loud, I think. So anyway, I hope you all have a fantastic week of gaming. Thank you so much for tuning in. I know that that's a weird hour for the upload. And if you have already set notifications, I hope that it does beep and boop at you in the middle of the night. But thanks, everybody, so much. Hopefully we'll talk to you on Monday. No promises. I think I am gone again, but that might change. So hopefully I see you on Monday. If I don't, I will put something up somewhere midweek next week and we'll touch base again and I'll talk about something else. I've got a couple new things you see over here. This whole shelf has stuff that I'm hoping to get played in the next week. So we will talk to you all later. Have a great week. Take care. Bye.